Truce talks in the desert. Iraq agrees to all Allied demands. An Iraqi diplomat announces the first release of Allied POWs. And a jetliner crash in Colorado. All on board are killed. This is the CBS Evening News. Connie Chung reporting. Good evening. Iraq's ambassador to the United Nations says the first of the Allied prisoners of war have been released. The announcement came just a short time ago.
We have already, I believe, released 10 POWs as a gesture of goodwill. 6 of them are American citizens, including one of them, the young lady that was captured a few days ago.
No confirmation yet from U.S. officials either in the Persian Gulf or Washington. General Norman Schwarzkopf had called for an immediate symbolic release and complete release of all POWs during truce talks today with his Iraqi counterparts. Susan Spencer reports.
For this historic meeting, the Allies chose an airfield in southern Iraq, former Republican Guard territory, an airfield they have controlled only for a day and a half. To say security was tight gave new meaning to the term, and the security would apply to the Iraqis, too.
They'll be checked by your security and ours, and then they'll move down to the negotiation.
Now, I don't want them embarrassed in any way, right?
No, sir.
Okay, I don't want them humiliated.
But the general made clear this was not to be an altogether friendly meeting either.
No question about it. I'm not here to give them anything. I'm here to tell them exactly what we expect them to do.
The Iraqis met U.S. forces at a checkpoint miles from the field and were driven to the site in some of the very high-tech machines that so contributed to their downfall, flying the neutral flag now of the Red Crescent. Until the Iraqis showed up, no one knew exactly who would come. The highest-ranking delegates turned out to be 2 lieutenant generals, said to speak on Baghdad's behalf. The meeting lasted just a little over 2 hours, with the question of POWs at the top of the agenda. When the grim-faced Iraqis departed, again courtesy Allied tanks, the general had only good news about the POWs.
We have agreed that this release should be immediate. We have agreed that the details of this release must be worked out by the International Red Cross.
Also to be handled by the Red Cross, the question of the 1,000 of detained Kuwaitis. On other issues, Iraq agreed to provide information on land and sea mines and work with the coalition on border security. Along with external woes, the Iraqis may have new internal problems. Civil unrest is reported growing in the southern city of Basra.
That was one of the concerns of the Iraqi delegation, was being able to get through Basra. I don't think they were worried too much about for their safety, but just the chaos and the upheaval that's going on within that city.
Fleeing civilians confirmed it.
Basra city is everybody fighting. I mean, the people who support for government, the people who's not supporting for government. Now, since 90% of Iraqi people hate Saddam.
The question whether, as the soldiers come home, unrest will grow, leading to the eventual removal of Saddam Hussein, the final item on the American wish list. Susan Spencer, CBS News in southern Iraq.
The biggest wish of our American troops came true just a few days ago when President Bush announced an end to the shooting. The war was suddenly behind them, and as Peter Van Sant reports, it was time for war stories.
Marines from Fox Company, grim-faced after 4 days of fighting, gather on the outskirts of Kuwait City to hear the news that the war is over.
What does that all mean for us? Okay, we're going to remain in a defensive posture here. I want to make sure that we don't get caught up in the jubilation of all this.
But as word spread, battle-worn faces turned bright. Marines who had worried about getting shot or gassed could finally relax. Thoughts turned homeward.
I'm real excited. I know one day closer to going home, drinking some beer, and being home with the little lady.
I think the first thing I'm going to do is going to lay down on the ground and kiss the ground. I'm ready to get back to America, though. I really do miss him.
The remarkable success of this war can be measured in casualties. This platoon didn't have a single Marine wounded or killed in the fighting.
The best thing is we get to take home all our Marines that we brought here. That's all I really care about.
Tension is replaced with laughter. It is a time for simple pleasures, a time to swap memories of the war.
We're standing on the roof of this tank. We're knocking on the roof with a rifle butt. Ding, ding, come on out of there.
The Marines unloaded and cleaned their weapons. They had trained for months for battle, expecting that a number of their buddies would be killed. But most never fired a shot in anger. Now, all they want is a chance to enjoy the peace. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, with Fox Company, outside Kuwait City.
With the United States reporting civil unrest in Iraq's second largest city, most Iraqis are being kept in the dark about the true outcome of the war. Betsy Aaron in Baghdad has our report, which was cleared by Iraqi censors.
Iraqis hear the news of the progress towards peace on their transistor radios, not just from Baghdad radio, but from foreign stations.
Any station you change, from BBC World Service to Voice of America to Monte Carlo to Paris, you see all of them against us. We can't know the truth. I prefer myself to hear Iraq, Baghdad radio.
Is the world against Iraq or is the world against Saddam Hussein?
Well, there's no differences between Saddam Hussein and Iraqis.
There is news here about the peace talks in the desert, although the radio has not reported the results of those talks. Iraqi television videotaped President Saddam Hussein meeting with the Revolution Command Council and top officials of the Ba'ath Party. The session, they said, took place tonight. The subject, the political situation and the problems of rebuilding and repairing the infrastructure of the country. Iraqi television is back on the air. Electricity is available beginning this evening for at least half the city. And in an irony of war, one of the first programs shown on Baghdad television was the Academy Award-winning American film Rain Man. Betsy Aaron, CBS News, Baghdad.
Here in the U.S., a United Airlines jet with 25 people on board crashed in Colorado Springs today, just missing houses and apartment buildings. Authorities believe there were no survivors. Bob McNamara reports.
Even when the first rescue crews arrived at the crash site, nothing was left to save. United 585 had disintegrated on impact, crashing into a creek bed, narrowly missing a residential park. Lucky were those in a nearby apartment complex from where some saw the plane go down.
I seen the people in the plane. They was banging on the windows.
Oh, I didn't see anyone come out that plane. Because it caught on fire? It caught on fire when it hit here, and it flipped over.
Witnesses said that skies were clear at the time of the crash, but that fierce winds were blowing.
There were no deferred maintenance items with respect to the aircraft. There were no reports with respect to mechanical problems, to our knowledge, from the cockpit crew.
Baffling to recovery crews and investigators is the almost total destruction of the Boeing 737, long considered one of the safest passenger jets. A tire and an engine cowling are among only a few of the recognizable parts of the plane, while the rest is shredded fragments. Late today, an investigating team from the National Transportation Safety Board arrived to begin the official probe of the crash.
Flight 585 originated this morning at Moline, Illinois, with an intermittent stop in Denver before coming on to Colorado Springs. There are reports from other pilots before the crash that winds here were gusting from 25 to 45 miles per hour, and there was a wind shear alert on at the time. So far, one of the plane's 2 flight data recorders have been recovered, and in that, investigators hope to find the cause. Connie?
Thank you, Bob McNamara. 3 Navy crew members died today when their plane crashed in a Chicago suburb. The T-39 jet nosedived into a residential area near the Glenview Naval Air Station. Witnesses say the pilot appeared to be taking extraordinary measures to avoid hitting homes. No one on the ground was hurt. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, more from the Gulf, including Bob McEwen on the rebuilding of Kuwait. And later, the war as seen by Arab American media.
Accidents? I don't even think about them anymore.
Introducing new improved Attends undergarments. Now the best protection you can get, even when you move. That's because unlike others, new Attends has a snug, secure shape and fits high at the waist, not low. What's more, it also has a special absorbent pad built right in with 50% more super absorbent material. So it absorbs.
Kuwait's Crown Prince and other members of the royal family will return home tomorrow. In battered Kuwait City today, military and civil authorities fought to restore a semblance of order. Eric Engberg has our report.
As Allied commanders start sending their troops home from Kuwait, they are still shaking their heads at the way the world overestimated the fighting skills of Saddam Hussein's army. The Iraqis, it turns out, were even inept in their effort to wreck Kuwait when they found out they couldn't keep it.
Some of the hotels have been trashed, windows shot out, furniture taken out, destroyed, cut up, burned, those kinds of things. But other than that, it's been a pretty a surprise to us that things are in as good a shape as we found them.
Army civil affairs experts who are helping the Kuwait government spend its vast wealth to help rebuild the country are finding that roads, bridges, and housing largely escaped damage, either by Iraqis or U.S. troops. Life in Kuwait City is still difficult because of the lack of running water or electricity. The retreating Iraqis blasted power plants with grenades and cut major transmission lines. With no electricity to pump gasoline, this OPEC member is getting a taste of fuel shortages, which should end when the power comes back in a few days. It will take much longer to get Kuwait back online as an oil producer. The job of snuffing out 500 wellhead fires is so unprecedented, the experts cannot even hazard a guess as to how long it will take.
This is the crime of the centuries and not the century.
Iraq also destroyed Kuwait's telephone service by stealing thousands of phones. Today, hundreds of Kuwaitis lined up for their first phone calls in months at a satellite hookup provided by AT&T.
I called my mother, my father, my son, my husband, all my brother, all my family.
Kuwait's army is pressing the hunt for Palestinians suspected of helping the Iraqis. Surprisingly, there have been no reports of revenge killings, even though everyone seems to have a gun dropped on the ground by Saddam's army. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Kuwait City.
American forces today took over a Gulf island that controls the approaches to Kuwait City. More than 1,400 Iraqis gave up without a fight. A Kuwaiti official estimated today it will cost $50 billion to rebuild the emirate. The Kuwaiti people are starting to rebuild their lives, as Bob McEwen reports.
Sunday afternoon on the dock by the Persian Gulf. Jessim Aidi, assistant manager of the Port of Kuwait, returns to his office for the first time in 7 months.
Last time it was Wednesday, 1st of August.
The day before the invasion.
The day before.
The Iraqis, who have been here since, left behind an official portrait of Saddam Hussein and the debris of their occupation. Since the Iraqis fled last Monday, Kuwaitis are just beginning to realize the extent of what Saddam's soldiers did to their country and to their lives. Some may never recover.
Side. What are they doing? And the manager's offices.
The words on this wall say, "Long live Saddam, leader of the Republican Guards." But the guards are long gone, and the conscripts who replaced them left pathetic signs of their malicious stay. A newspaper comparing Hitler to Saddam, an officer's jacket, a Molotov cocktail they had no time to throw, pin-ups, and a prayer rug.
I thought that it will be a terrible place. So I found it more than I thought in my mind.
There is a cross-section of goods stolen from Kuwait, the leftovers of a looting spree, the bullets they used to get them.
It's full of, what do they call it?
Ammunition.
Ammunition for destroying.
And on the wall, there's a final farewell, an unnecessary reminder that someone was here. Bob McEwen, CBS News, Kuwait City.
It has all come so far. Today, our engineers can crash test cars on a computer. If only they could have seen.
From malnutrition, but are in remarkably good shape. He said the four had been beaten, but suffered no permanent injuries. Correspondent Ed Bradley talked with his colleagues in London.
It was January 21st, during the first week of the air war, that the four CBS newsmen disappeared. Their car with some camera equipment and $6,000 in cash was found in the desert near the Kuwaiti border. We hoped they'd been captured, but until yesterday, we didn't really know if they were still alive. Bob Simon, Peter Bluff, Roberto Alvarez, and Juan Caldera were released in Baghdad and flown to London, where I talked with them this morning at the Humana Hospital. They told of being held in bunkers in Kuwait and prisons in Baghdad, of surviving Allied bombing, Iraqi interrogations, and beatings.
I mean, they were hitting us hard with canes. This hurts. But I think you sort of went into brief shock as an instinctive physical, psychological defense mechanism against the pain, against the terror. That it was a way of escaping from it. And that this happened regularly when we were being beaten and when we were in situations which were just impossible to deal with. When you just didn't know when something horrible was going to end, I sort of felt myself slipping into a form of shock.
Did you ever reach a point where you thought that the next moment might be the last?
We were made to kneel down on the floor with our heads bowed, and that has a certain classic feeling about it. And that was the first time and the only time I can remember thinking, oh well.
Well, the Iraqis starved us and beat us, threatened our lives, and terrorized us. In fact, the only time we came close to death was through American bombs, when the Americans bombed the building we were in. And the one reaction I still can't explain to myself is what Roberto just described, as when those bombs started hitting, the dead calm I felt. And it wasn't something I could rationalize like, well, you know, my time is up, you know, one of the cliches one uses when one is thinking about these things. Well, if my number's up, my number's up. It wasn't any of these cliches. It was just a calm I cannot explain. I thought I was going to die.
Bob Simon in London talking with Ed Bradley. You can see more of Bradley's interview with the 4 CBS newsmen coming up on 60 Minutes.
When it's heartburn,
Plus gas.
get new Tom's Plus. Calcium-rich antacid relief plus gas-busting simethicone.
No other antacid gives you that.
New Tom's Plus.
For the flu, Metaflu.
A nationwide recall was ordered today for Sudafed 12-hour decongestant capsules following 2 deaths linked to cyanide tampering. The deaths and another case of illness occurred in Washington state. The manufacturer of Sudafed, Burroughs Wellcome, says the recall is precautionary.
Despite what appears to be a localized situation, in the interest of public safety, the company has instituted a nationwide recall of this product. Consumers are being asked to return all Sudafed 12-hour capsules to the store from which they were purchased.
The company stresses that only Sudafed 12-hour capsules are involved in the recall. High-tech weapons establish their reputation on Persian Gulf battlefields. At the same time, high-tech business communication has been firming up its popularity on the home front. Mark Phillips has a report.
The Gulf crisis has brought these people to TV screens not for news, but for another reason. They're taking care of business using video conferencing, meetings transmitted back and forth on TV, because Gulf tensions and the fear of terrorism have produced a fear of flying. The business trip has become the business video conference.
The company has put an edict out that we are not doing any traveling to Europe except under customer emergency situations.
So executives in California sit in front of monitors and cameras and talk to a colleague in England.
Is this what you send me for it?
The project schedules for
Yeah, I mail it with attachment on it. Yeah. Yes, I get that.
TV meetings are still a bit clumsy, requiring specially wired rooms. But the war has increased business by 50 to 60%, and the industry is trying to cash in on its new popularity.
The Gulf crisis has caused a number of companies to rethink their strategies of communication.
Tough economic times have also helped.
They're turning to conference calls, basically to save the travel time and expenses.
Good morning. All sides are now on the conference line.
The good old telephone conference call has been given a Gulf War boost as well, for the same reason. No one ever hijacked or blew up a phone.
Business has increased dramatically since the outbreak of the war.
In fact, business at times overwhelms capacity. especially in calls to places thought more risky than others.
Aloha Rare, this is Washington calling to establish the program line.
The travel industry's bust has become the teleconferencing industry's boom. Whether for reasons of fear or cost, more and more people seem to be letting their fingers do the flying. The war may be over, but there are those who hope some of the habits it's developed will last.
Can we confirm the numbers for Legos with you just for the heck of it?
Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
Okay, for program, I just...
In recent years, doctors have discovered a flaw in eggs. They're extremely high in cholesterol, and a diet high in cholesterol and fat can contribute to the risk of heart disease. Nutritionists at Fleischmann's have found a way to overcome this flaw with Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the only one that's 99% real egg with zero cholesterol and zero saturated fat. Next time you love an egg, crack open a carton. Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the great tasting egg without a flaw.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered the 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
10 years down the road, I'd like to be in business for myself. Already got my security force. That's right, partner. We got us a lifetime contract. Here's my part of the bargain.
Alpo. More meat protein than 10 pounds of steak fortified with all the vitamins and minerals dogs need to eat well and be well, well into the future.
Now, there's something you gotta understand, Max. Security guard's supposed to be me, okay?
Most Americans saw the Gulf War through the eyes of network television and major newspapers. Some Arab Americans didn't like what they were seeing. They went looking for a different perspective, and they found it. This is not the usual evening news. It's Arab American Television, a new network sending out pictures and information by satellite, just part of the sudden expansion of Arab American media driven by the Gulf crisis.
Welcome to your Arab American television program.
What they see in the network, it's flashes, fast flashes. We go into more details. We go into more names of individuals, names of cities, names of streets, you know, so they feel more closer to the happening.
From a tiny studio in Hollywood, the program brought viewers closer to the war by focusing on the Arab angle. Pictures of mosques and bomb damage rarely seen on mainstream TV have viewers like the Gayed family of New Jersey tuning in.
They showed the people in Iraq wounded and dying and all the casualties that happening in Iraq right now, where the national TV didn't show that.
The voice of Arab opinion is also heard on radio, like this new satellite network broadcasting from an old Christian radio studio in Maryland.
We have talking shows that allow people to sort of pick up the phone and vent their fury if they have any.
And many Arab Americans are venting their anger, particularly against the mainstream press.
We've been projected as bums, terrorists, bloodthirsty, sand niggers, everything, you name it, we came across in the media this way.
While not all Arab Americans share Sablani's anger, many say this new growth of Arab media will eventually bring the diverse community closer together.
I think in the end, when all of the dust is settled, people will become closer because opinions will be shared. You know how I feel, I know how you feel, and things like that.
And that's our news. Dan Rather will be back from the Persian Gulf. He'll be here tomorrow night with the CBS Evening News. 60 Minutes is coming up, and later tonight, Bill Plant with the CBS Sunday Night News. I'm Connie Chung in New York. I'll see you again next Sunday night. Thank you for joining us and for all of us at CBS News. Good night.
CBS News in the Gulf. Dan Rather, Bob McEwen, Eric Engberg, Susan Spencer, and Bob Simon. Experience CBS News.
This is CBS.